Hi, everyone. Welcome to STEM Files. My name is Alice Apostolakos.
I'm Anabel Tenorio.
And I'm Rodney Valdivia.
And Rodney here is our guest for this episode. Would you like to give us a little blurb about yourself so our listeners know what we're getting?
So I'm a P2 student over at Larkin University, or a pharmacy student, second year. That's what P2 stands for. I guess I'm the class president. I'm part of PDC. I've done some cancer research there, and I don't know. I graduated from FIU in 2020, and I started there at 2023. So I'll be graduating next year in May.
Rodney, can you give us a little bit of a backstory about your undergraduate career and kind of where you come from?
So start at the beginning. I guess I started at Broward College first. I did about 3 years, which should have been 2. I wasn't the best student in high school, and I got just enough what I needed to get like the honors college with my SAT score. So they paid for my classes while I was there. Kind of dropped the ball a little bit, even when I went to college, because I kicked some of those bad habits. And then I transferred here to FIU, and I was like, all right, it's kind of time to like do my thing. Still didn't really do too well. I graduated 2020. My major was in biology as well, because I was wanting to do medical school, but then that kind of I got disillusioned with it. So when I graduated, I was like in this kind of weird space where I didn't really know what I wanted to do anymore. But that's kind of my undergraduate experience.
Gotcha. And so where do you go to school now, and what are you studying?
So right now I'm going to Larkin University over in North Miami, and it's a pharmacy school. So I'm in my second year there now.
Perfect. And do you, let's see what else I could ask. Do you kind of like what you're doing now? So you talked about going into med school. What kind of disillusioned you from that, and what made you go into pharmacology instead?
It was a really long internal struggle, I guess I could call it. Since I was like in 3rd grade, I had always wanted to be a neurosurgeon. I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. My biggest issue was always like assignments, but I would always do really good on exams. So I was like, once I get to college, and I'm just going to be, it's very exam heavy. It's like, I'll be fine. But then as I started to get older, I was like, the lifestyle and the things that I want in terms of like having a family didn't really coincide with being like, especially a neurosurgeon, where there might be 3 in a hospital and you're like working 4 days, and the other 3 days you're on call, whatever. And you have to live like a certain distance from like the hospital or whatever. And then there was probably I felt a lot of pressure, which I'm sure a lot of pre-med students feel, from like, you're always telling your family like, I'm going to be a doctor. And then they're like expecting you to be a doctor. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to like navigate that as well, because you don't want to like disappoint them, which I don't think they would ever feel disappointed. It's just something that we put on ourselves. And then like the whole time I was in undergrad, I was like, if I could start over, I would just do pharmacy. If I could just start over, I'd just do pharmacy. Just because it's still, it's not just working at Walgreens. You can still like be a clinical pharmacist and work like in a hospital, or you can work in like those types of like patient care settings. So it's like, that's still something I can do and still have like a decent work-life balance, and obviously still make, because you go to school for 4 years, you're going to be in debt. You want to make that money back. So it's still like a viable option to be successful.
Of course.
So
yeah. Sorry.
Just a question. So you were looking to like be more in like a hospital setting while also like maintaining some of the like work-life balance that you were looking for?
Yes, that's kind of how it started. Now that I'm in pharmacy school, I'm kind of realizing how many options there is with pharmacy. Like there's IT pharmacy, there's a lot of other things. So right now I'm kind of like, while I'm doing rotations, now starting in May, I'm just kind of going to want to see like what else is out there that I might enjoy as well. So keep my mind open. But it was really like, because you can still kind of have that, clinical impact, or like you can, there's actually pharmacists then at who I know like actually see patients with the doctor. Mm-hmm. So you still can interact in that way and actually like, have that point of touch care.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, neither did I. Can you go on a little bit more about like what type of options you have as a pharmacist, like IT pharmacy? What is that about?
I've never heard of that.
IT, the technical thing.
Yo,
Yeah.
like,
So
wait,
it's
that's
actually cool because my first rotation, my what they call IPPs, so your like introductory rotation was at down at the Sylvester Cancer Comprehensive Center, the one in Brickell. And they have a really like, there's like infectious disease pharmacists, there's hematology oncology pharmacists who work like lymphoma, leukemia, multiple myeloma, and those are pharmacists who work with obviously an MD as well, who specialize in whatever that is. And you know, the patient comes in, blah blah blah, they do a thing, and then they kind of go back and forth over what would be the perfect, like the appropriate drug regimen, the dosing. Because something you kind of realize is the doctors don't. They obviously know what to prescribe, but they don't know like every minute little detail because that's not what they're going to school for. That's kind of the role of pharmacist. Right. So in that sense, the pharmacist is very important, especially obviously in something like cancer, anti-cancer drugs, where there's a lot of side effects and contraindications, etc. So obviously that's very niche. But when it comes to like IT pharmacy, it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys know what Epic is or Cerner. So it's kind of like a database where all your medical records are stored.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, so like they pull up, Anabel or Rodney, whatever, and then it'll pull like all your item lists, the drugs you're taking, your labs, blah, blah, blah. At at least I don't know if it's all ran by him. I'm sure there's actual like, IT majors. But like when it comes to setting up like the automated dispensing machines, it's an IT, he has a Pharm degree, but he just does like, he sets up how much of each drug you want in each one, or how big the drawer should be for how much, like if you want 10 bags of dexamethasone on this floor or 40 on the other floor, and it kind of makes sense because, that person or that pharmacist is going to know a little bit more about how much of each drug you need, depending on the floor, or like how it should be set up in the system so that it can be more streamlined for other healthcare professionals as well. Yeah. So like if you pull up, a pediatric patient with cancer, and then it'll have like, you just click there's like a little button you can just click and it'll show you the flow chart of like what drugs they should be taking depending on their lab values and stuff. So that's obviously something who somebody just did like software engineering isn't going to really know the drug dosing. So it makes sense to have like an IT pharmacist kind of take care of that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's like best of both worlds.
That's like literally the perfect cross section because I'm in computer science.
Yeah.
So that's like the perfect cross section of our fields.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. So
yeah.
That's nice to get like an IT pharmacist to interview with us would be like a nice little crossover between me and Alice a little bit.
Wait.
Is that something that you're thinking about? So you're keeping your options open, you said, during rotation.
Yeah.
But where do you think like you're leaning towards?
So I'm definitely leaning towards at least a 1-year residency, which I don't know if I'll do 2 years just because.
And forgive me, I'm a computer science major. I don't know what residency is. And also for our listeners.
So as a pharmacist, if you want to work at a Walgreens, you can just graduate, pass your boards, and just go straight working at Walgreens or CVS or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But if you want to work like in a hospital setting or clinical setting or like a specialty pharmacy, I don't know if it's true for every specialty pharmacy, but for some, they require like a 1-year residency. It's basically like a 1-year training. And you're going to make like half what a regular pharmacist would make because they're giving like the intern.
Yeah.
It's almost similar to like a doctor's residency. Typically the first year is very general, and then the second year is like if you want to do like cardiology or hem-oncology or something, like typically that's when you would specialize.
I see.
But it's not something you have to do.
Okay. See, yeah, when I think pharmacy, like I thought it was. So I'm glad that you're here to clear up some of the things that go into pharmacy, right? Because a lot of people, when they see pharmacists, they think Walgreens, like CVS. Yeah. That's all they think about. You never really think about having a pharmacist in the hospital. And the way that you're describing a lot of these pharmacists is like they do have that patient care like aspect of it, which is something that like I feel like when you're thinking about med school, that's like the main reason why you want to go into medicine, right? So I do want to go into medicine. And I'm kind of like where you like are like, okay, how does this fit into my family work-life balance? And I love it. My passion behind it is still there. But I do think that pharmacy is a good option if you do want, like you said, that work-life balance, but also having that clinical patient care aspect. And so what kind of motivated you to continue pharmacology after having such a disillusion with medicine? I thought maybe that was something that a lot of students disillusion themselves from medicine. They kind of find themselves like at a setback. What made you like spark up like, okay, pharmacy is the next option. Like, let's go for that.
So that was a little bit, I guess, it took a lot of time for me. I graduated in 2020, and I didn't start pharmacy school until 2023. During that time, I was actually teaching labs here at FIU for a while. And I don't know. I guess it took a lot, because even then, like, even when I graduated, I was still studying for, like, the MCAT. I was still doing all these things. And, like, I still kind of, for, like, the first year, I still kind of had that, like, that mindset of going to medical school. And then, like, the following year came, and I was like, I just don't feel like I never even applied to medical school after doing like everything that I felt I needed to do. And it was kind of just like at some point I had to like, it was a lot of conversations I had with my friends and other people. And like, I got lucky that I had a really good like mentor while I was here at FIU. Somebody who, she was like, I think she graduated a year or two before me, and she kind of had those like in-depth conversations with me. So I think it's good to have somebody you can kind of talk to about these things, which, you know, I know everybody doesn't necessarily have, but, you know, try and find someone. And at some point, yeah, it's kind of just like, you know, I kept telling myself, oh, if I could start over, I'd do fine. I was like, all right, let's just try it. Let me get my applications or my portfolio in order, and let's see what happens. And luckily I got accepted. Well, I got accepted to all the schools I applied to, but
Congrats.
No. But yeah, I think it's just up to you at some point, because I always told people like the hardest part kind of comes after you graduate, because that's when you realize if you're actually passionate about something. It's very easy when you're like signing up for classes, you're like, okay, I have to be there at 8 a.m. on Monday, or like somebody's telling like you have to get this grade or whatever. But when it comes after, which I think is what happens to a lot of students, is it's hard to wake up 5 days a week and study for 6 hours out of the MCAT books, right?
Yeah.
Or it's hard to like, you have to go find these things, and it's not necessarily given to you the same way like a PowerPoint lecture would be, or like, you know, you get like a million emails from FIU. Oh, here's this opportunity. Now you have to like go find them. So that's really when you find out, I think, if you're truly passionate about it. And I recommend that everybody take like a gap year, regardless of what you want to do. Sometimes it's just good because you don't want to get into a field or into a graduate program where it's $50K a year. Yeah. And you're like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And you're like, that loan is still going to be there. Yeah. And it kind of gives you, you know, and applications alone are expensive. It's ridiculous. Some might be $200 a school. And if you apply to 20 schools,
do the math.
You can spend, you know, easily $2 to $4K. So I definitely recommend, you know, taking that time, get your application as strong as you can, and just think like, is that the life? You know, if you have to wake up in the morning and like, oh, I don't want to do, you know, I have to do medicine today, or I have to do this today, it probably isn't something you want to do for 40 more years, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I wake up and I'm like, ugh, every day, but I still do it.
Well, nobody likes to wake up and study, but if you're like, you know, like at some point.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so can you talk a little bit about the application process for pharmacology student, like for pharmacology school, not student, and how was that different? Like, did you have to go back and take other classes because you were a biology major going into the pre-med track, or like everything was kind of the same?
It's pretty similar. You just do it through, instead of like AMCAS, you do it through PharmCAS.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the same thing.
They don't really change up the names.
No, it's like the same company.
It's pretty direct.
Yeah. The requirements are probably less, where I think you needed like 1 or 2 less letters of recommendation. I think I submitted 3. Wait, it might be the same for medical students. It's like 2 science and 1 non-science.
Yeah.
I think I submitted 2 or 3 letters. The courses, they're pretty generally the same. Some schools might be a little bit more picky. Like for some reason, Nova wanted like economics as like
That's not something you would think about.
Yeah, but like they also have like little, like if you've taken up to a certain math, or if you've taken, don't remember, but they would like take off certain classes that you already taken something else.
Got it.
The other thing that's kind of, I guess, maybe unique about pharmacy is you don't need a bachelor's to apply. As long as you get those prereqs before, you can do that in like 2 years. I think there's one student in my class who he did like 2 years of college because he just did all the prereqs and then they accepted him. So that's kind of a little bit nicer as well. You don't have to wait the full 4 years.
Yeah.
In my opinion, just get the degree because I don't know.
And yeah, a bachelor's degree is good to fall
Yeah.
back on. Either way.
But if you know you want to do pharmacy, then I just say do the prereqs and get into it. But other than that, it's pretty simple. You still have to go through, you still have to do the primary, then you do the interview, then you have to pay the nice $1,000 deposit.
$1,000 deposit.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to, like, it's a deposit to hold, like, your seat. Like,
Oh.
you're saying you're committing to the school type of thing.
Everything revolves around money.
Yeah.
Crazy.
What do you do if you don't have $1,000? Do they just throw away the seat? Like first come, first serve? Like,
I mean, I don't know. You have like they gave me like a week to pay the $1,000 too. They're like, by next Monday we need the money.
gee.
Yeah,
Oh,
some schools are a little bit more lenient about it.
Do they give it back to you if you don't get in?
No.
Really?
Yeah, like they.
Wait,
yeah.
oh my.
No. If you're paying the deposit, that means you got in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
okay.
like,
I
hey,
thought
you've
this
been
was like during
accepted.
applying. I'm like, you just
No,
give me
but I mean,
$1,000.
applications cost money.
Yeah.
So you don't know if you're getting it. And then some schools, at least for school, they ask for secondaries. And so like the secondaries could range about like 50. And then I've had one that like asked me for 250. And I'm like, okay, but I don't even know if I'm getting in. So I'm just doing the secondary just because,
Wow.
I want to get in basically.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
stealing
so-
from you guys.
Yeah, literally stealing.
Yeah, actually.
The only thing nice now is like before, I think you have to, not all schools, but you would have to like travel to do the interviews.
Yeah.
But now, especially after like, I guess COVID, which is the only thing that kind of like became convenient. It's
Good,
like now
yeah.
you just do them like on Zoom.
Yeah.
So
It's like the college application thing on steroids.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, actually.
Actually, going back, like thinking about it, I was like, I should have just done more college applications. Like, because at the time I was like, oh my God, they're asking for so much. Like, how dare you ask my GPA, my SAT score?
Why are you
But
asking
now-
me to send my score? Like, like why?
But now I look back and I'm like, they're asking like, what is your passion behind medicine? Da 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 da. What was the moment that I'm like, dude, it's like 200 and like
Yeah.
something words per paragraph, and I'm like, oh my God, so much. But it's true what you're saying. Like that's when you really find the passion behind it. Because like if you don't do the secondaries or you don't do the primaries, then don't do it. You're not like you don't have the passion behind it. And I think that's like evident what you're saying because I've taken like I think it's my second gap year now. And it's this year that I'm finally realizing, oh, I have to wake up 5 days a week to do the 6 hours studying, sometimes even more. And it's like that's where you find out, okay, this is something I really, really want to do. So I think that was some good good
'cause-
motivational advice.
And I promise it doesn't get any easier once you're in. Like, if like looking back at the MCAT now, I'm like, I wish I could take that test every day instead of like the exams we're taking.
Really?
Yeah.
Can
like,
you give me like a day in the life of a pharmacology student?
So my pharmacy school is a little bit different. We're a 3-year program instead of 4. So we only do 5 semesters of like didactic courses, and then now in May we'll do rotations for about a year. It's technically 2 years and like 10 months or something. But so we go to school, or we're supposed to be in class 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. 5 days a week, or at least that's the first week. And then the second week, because we have 2-week blocks, the second week we'll have class Monday, we'll have a study day Tuesday, class Wednesday, and then study day Thursday, and then our final assessment Friday. So we kind of have like every 2 weeks we have a new class. So like if I'm doing cardio 1, it's 2 weeks done. Cardio 2, 2 weeks done. Cardio 3, 2 weeks done. I like that schedule just because like if you like the topic, it's all you're getting for 2 weeks, and if you don't like it, you only have to sit through it for 2 weeks.
It's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, it's a little bit intense at first, but once you kind of like get like used to the way that it's like, how do I explain it? Like once you get into a rhythm, then it's kind of, you feel comfortable. It's like the same, today I'm doing this, tomorrow I'm doing this, tomorrow, like you kind of have like you kind of get like a feel for the professors. You kind of know what to expect. Some classes are a little bit like crazy. Like oncology is really hard.
True.
But I don't know, the community is really good. Obviously, everybody, there's still something I kind of didn't like about undergrad when it comes to pre-meds and kind of healthcare in general is there's a lot of competition between classmates.
Yes.
And obviously it's very much warranted because, you know, there's what, maybe 50,000 people applying every year to medical school and like 10% of them gets to get a seat, or whatever the number is. So I understand the need to be competitive, but the field is very much like about working together and
Yeah.
realizing that, you know, what the pharmacist knows, the MD doesn't know. What the MD knows, the pharmacist doesn't know. You know, and there's pharmacists who know more than you, or there's MDs who know less than you, or whatever. Like, you know, you always have to work with people. So it's kind of like, at least in graduates, at least where I'm at, of what I've noticed is there's still competitiveness because, you know, we all want to have a residency or we want to have a job, but we all are all more willing to like help each other. And like, okay, I don't want, like, no matter what, we're all fighting for the same job, right? But we want to make sure that nobody falls behind or like gets left behind. So it's like a healthy competition, I guess is a good way to explain it. And everybody's more like, there's no like, you know, like there's like frats and clubs, but it's more like professional based. So like we go and do like volunteering. So like that kind of atmosphere is nice too. Cause it's not like everybody's very much like, okay, it's time to like, we're about our things, you know, it's not just like, oh, let's have fun or whatever. So it's very nice in that way. But is there sleep? No, especially because like that second week, it's like exam Monday, exam Wednesday, exam Friday. So it's just like the whole time you're just studying.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask about like the structure of those classes. How do you do a whole course in 2 weeks?
So like I said, it's very, very intense. Like we'll do like 4 like 100-slide PowerPoints in like a day, right? So there's some, even when they give us like 50-slide PowerPoints, it's like it's just
Very dense.
Very small font.
Yeah.
It's super dense. It's manageable because I think we're very lucky to have. I mean, every school has bad professors, but we have some pretty good professors. Some of them even teach like at MD schools, or they actually work in like clinical settings. So it's really nice. We're also a little bit smaller of a class size, so like you get to build that relationship, and you can actually go, like there's more time for you to go to office hours, and they're going to be more available for you. But yeah, that first week, so the way it works is like Monday, Tuesday, we'll just have regular class. That first Wednesday, we'll have lecture, and any time of that day, they can give us what they call a formative, which is essentially like a quiz, right? So it'll be like 15 questions, 30 minutes on the topics from the first 2 days, right? And then we'll have regular lectures for the rest of the day, and then Thursday, Friday. Then that second Monday, we'll have a formative on the remaining information. And then Wednesday, we have what's called a longitudinal, which is kind of like a semester. That's the only one that's not like a 2-week block. So it's like a semester-long course where they're kind of reiterating some of the information from previous courses. So like
a review of some sorts.
Kind of, yeah. So it's supposed to keep you like. So we took diabetes or the endocrine course last spring. So they're kind of using this longitudinal course to like ask us questions about that class, or they'll ask us questions about pulmonary, which we also took like last spring, or cardiology, which we took in summer. So they keep kind of like reintroducing that, but it's kind of like its own thing. Kind of unrelated. Sometimes it kind of coincides with what you're doing that you know, for that block, because like when you're when you're in cardio 3 and they're reviewing stuff from cardio 1, it still kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Not completely, but you know, it still kind of helps. But that's kind of like its own thing, and that's usually like 30 questions, about the same amount of time, 30, 45 minutes, and then usually that's when we get a lot of like our hands-on experience. So last Wednesday, right? Yeah, last Wednesday we had what we call an IPE event, which is where we met with the PA students from what's this place called? MDC.
Oh, okay.
And then there were some MDs from, I think, like one of the Caribbean schools. I think St. Kitts, but I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. And we kind of like went into this simulation lab where they had like patients, you know, kind of mock patients, and they were like, oh, I'm presenting with blah, 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 blah. These are the medications I'm on. And then like as a team, they put like 2 of each student as like so there's like 6 of us. As like a team, we were like trying to discuss like what would be the best way to treat this patient, what should we do about their medications. And it was pretty neat. So that's kind of like the hands-on portion, or like we'll have to do like journal clubs, or which is essentially just presenting like new research on existing drugs or new drugs coming to the market. So it's pretty interesting. And then Friday would be like our final summative, which is like essentially just the final. That's 60 questions in 2 hours. And typically they're all case questions. Like you'll have like some kind of like what I call freebies, because they're just like more like, do you know this topic or not? But it's a lot of like patient has blah, 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 blah. What is the best, what's first line therapy, or, well, you know, things like this.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. I had a question in mind, and now it's kind of lost into the abyss. But, oh my God. Alice, do you have anything? I've literally lost my train of thought.
Well, I was gonna ask, like, what do you feel has been the most like effective way of learning? Like, what do you think has like been the most?
I think it's different for everyone. Naturally, I think what works best for me is working or studying with your classmates, and that doesn't mean you have to do it with them 24/7. We do a lot of like solo review. So like for the first quiz and really the second one, we kind of do our own thing, just because I feel like a lot of the professors, especially in these more difficult courses that we've been taking now, they kind of do a really good job of like explaining the material to us, and it's not necessarily easy. It's very bulky, like it's like a lot of information, but they do a pretty good job. So I think going to class, which I know a lot of other schools, people don't go to class.
For the undergrads, attendance isn't mandatory, right? So it's all up to you?
Yeah, not at every school.
Okay.
Not every school. Some schools, they might have it, like there's a school, I can't remember now, that has like 10% of their grade is like attendance.
Got it.
So some schools it is mandatory. For us, it's not. They want it to be, but it's not right now. So a lot of people don't go to class, and you can kind of tell that they don't go to class based on their scores. No, just to be honest.
No, of course, I get it. Like here at undergrad, right? Like if you don't come to class, I mean, that's I talked to Alice one time where I didn't go to class for Orgo too, and I paid the price for it, you know?
Yeah, especially like that's one of those classes where like, you know.
You got it, yeah.
If you don't go to class for like pharmacoeconomics, because that's like one of the like the, you know, garbage class, you're not going to be bad, but like for Oncology 1, you kind of you have to. Like, there's just no way to memorize all those therapeutics without like somebody who can teach you those therapeutics. Yeah, so we kind of like do our own thing. And we kind of like hit like where we feel we need. Usually the morning of, we'll get there a little bit early. So our classes start at 8 a.m. We usually get there around 6. And campus isn't even open until 7. So we'll kind of like sit out in the parking lot, just like study. But you know, you have to do what you have to do. And we'll really go, like, we'll just go hard. Like,
this is like lock-in central. Like, like actually like 24/7.
I think I do 10% better on every exam just from like those first 1 to 2 hours before we take our summative. Like that moment where you guys are just like,
you
just like quiz each other, you go crazy.
Yeah.
So that's usually before the first 2 forms. That's summative. So the Thursday before our summative, we get to school 8 a.m. and we're there and we go over everything. If it takes us until 4 or 6 p.m., we're there until 4 or 6 p.m. Like I've been there from 8 to 9 before, because our campus closes at 9. So it just depends on the class. But like we'll stay there. We'll go over everything, like practice problems. If they give us like we use like what's called ExamSoft, which I think is like similar to Honor Lock.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if you guys.
I haven't heard of it, but
have we? No, I don't think I've used exam.
It's the same thing as Honor Lock. You just like to go in. They, you know, it like locks down your browser. It doesn't like record you or anything because we're in class, but like it's the same kind of program.
Yeah.
So like sometimes we'll put like practice quizzes and stuff on there. So we'll go through that. I don't use every resource just because it becomes overwhelming. So it's the same way for like MCAT or if you're studying for your GRE or whatever. You find what works for you, what resources work for you. It's kind of the same thing because you can kind of get lost. You
don't know where to start.
Yeah, or it's just a lot. And you know, I'm very lucky. Also, we have one of my classmates, or one of like my close groups. She makes like these drug tables, and like she'll take all the PowerPoints and make like this like huge document. It's like 100 pages. But it's like all the information we kind of...
I love the name of that.
Yeah.
You know, it's literally like a 17-page document, and it's just like it's just lists of drugs and all the things you need to know about the drugs. So we're lucky to have her. Like she definitely saves us. But that Thursday is just like, we call it like tutoring. So we kind of just go over that document from start to finish. And that's definitely what like if you try to do this on your own, I mean, you can definitely do it. It's just
Probably
you're making it so much harder for yourself if
Yeah.
you're doing it on your own.
Makes sense.
And kind of like when you talk about it with your peers and stuff, you're going to memorize it a lot quicker than just like reading it 100 times, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like a lot of the times when you're studying with other people, sometimes when the professor explains it some way, like you don't understand it. And then when you have like your friend or your close peer kind of explain it, you're like, oh, wait, I understand now. Because they explain it a bit better. And then it's also good for them and it's good for you, right? Because they're teaching you, so they know the knowledge well enough to teach it to you.
Yeah.
And you're also learning from them,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I agree. I think studying in groups is kind of like where it's at, especially when you have like those 2-week blocks you're talking about. Like so much to
sounds very
memorize, so much
intense,
to like
you know.
learn.
You have to trauma bond with those other people. You're not
No,
gonna survive.
it's definitely trauma bonding.
I have a question. So you said earlier that you felt a bit disillusioned about going to med school, and you took a gap year to kind of figure it out. And now that like you're in school now and you're doing it, and you know, like you said, it's very intense, very structured. You have to keep with it. How do you like personally feel about it? Are you feeling motivated? Have you felt good doing it? Passionate? Do you feel overwhelmed? Just curious.
I think I kind of loved it straight from the start. I think it's a little bit different though for me because I had taken so much time off of school, so I was like finally happy to start feeling like productive again. Because maybe there's days where you feel like this too, and probably other people too. It's like when you're not, when you're in like that awkward period where you're not applying, but you're not in school, so you're kind of just like doing nothing, quote unquote, doing nothing. You kind of feel like, and maybe this is like a toxic mindset that I have and other people have, but it's like if I'm not doing something, somebody else is.
No, I think that's every student's mindset. I mean, like at least for me, being in this little gap, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm studying for the MCAT. That's like the only thing I'm doing. I'm like, oh my God, there's so many other people. My friend just graduated. Oh my God, she's in med school. She got acceptance. I'm like, I'm not doing anything.
It's like purgatory.
It's like, yeah, it's a little bit like purgatory.
Yeah. So I kind of had to deal with that. I don't want to say I had to deal with it. It was just something that was always like in the back. Like that's kind of why I would wake up. It also kind of motivated me in that way too. I'm like, okay, if I'm not studying, somebody else is studying right now, so I have to get up and study. Like it's like that kind of thing. And it kind of transitioned into pharmacy school too. I was like, okay, do I want to do research? Okay, yeah, because somebody else is probably doing research. Okay, do I want to do this? Yeah, because there's probably another applicant for residency who's doing this. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword in that way, but it's also like, when do you take a break or when do you like acknowledge yourself type of thing. I really like just, I don't know, like you kind of get used to it. Like once you get used to once you get into your rhythm and you kind of get used to the fire, I guess, and studying all that time and you make your friends, it's honestly enjoyable. Like we've talked about it a few times now because we have like, I think 4 classes left and we're like, this is literally like right before an exam. We're like, damn, this is gonna be one of the last times that like the 6 of us are like in this room, like crying over an exam. Like, and it's like a weird feeling because you're like, they become, when you see these people so much and you study so often, they become like your brothers and sisters. And like, there's a classmate of mine who's a little bit older than us, so she's like our pharmacy mom. So she's like, oh, my children, I'm gonna miss you guys. Like, so it's kind of, it becomes like, we call ourselves like our family.
Oh,
so it's kind of nice.
That's cute. That's cute.
So like, you kind of get comfortable. And that is another thing that it's nice to feel comfortable, but to me, comfort is not necessarily growing. So I'm always trying to find new things, whether it's in research or organizations, or volunteering or whatever. Any exercise you can do to kind of like build up your portfolio or your applications or. And sometimes they seem kind of trivial or menial, but you kind of like the things you do. You have to like, how do I explain? Like, there's some classes you guys have taken that you're probably like, why am I taking this class? Right?
Yeah.
Like, why am I taking math or why am I taking
100%.
ecology? Right. It doesn't matter. But it's like you have to like, what am I getting out of this class? Right. So when it comes to math, the way I see it is like there's 100 different ways to solve the same problem. Right. So it's like 10 can be 8 plus 2, 7 plus 3. And that seems like kind of dumb or whatever, but it's like, it is the truth when you come to each like case question where it's like you're gonna realize every single person can come to the same answer but in a different way, or you can say this is my answer, but I also think this one's correct, and they might both be correct. It's just what your doctor or what you as a pharmacist like to prescribe. And it's like, so when you do these like volunteering events, or you're like, why would I go to this thing? Like, I don't really, whatever. It's like, it's something you have to ask yourself, like, what can I gain from this? Maybe in terms of like a lesson or something like that. So that's kind of the mindset I've had while I was in pharmacy school. And what I kind of like started to have during like those gap years, I started like thinking like, okay, what do I want to do? How can I get there? What are the things that I can do to not just grow professionally, but like as a person? I think that's something that's very important as well. That people don't realize is how much you grow, like as a person, like as you do these things, as you do.
Yeah.
Like it sounds kind of corny and cheesy, but you really do as you like do more volunteering events.
Yeah.
And you do like all these things, and like you become active and not just like I'll just do my MCAT and get a good score. It's like, okay, great, but like,
what else did you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like a lot of schools, especially, which you'll probably learn when you start applying to graduate schools, they're not going to ask you, because when you go to the when you go to interviews and they see all right, you had a 3.8 GPA, you had a 3.6, or whatever you had, and it's like, all right, what else can you tell me? I had a 3.8 GPA.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I find that interesting because, like in computer science as well, when applying to internships and stuff like that, it's also a very competitive process. I know a lot of students stress about having the like 4.0 GPA and like getting all of the A's and all of the really hard programming classes. But then most of the time when you're applying for internships, they're going to ask you about your personal projects, about, your interests and what you've done outside of school. There's plenty of people I know who have like 3.2, 3.4, GPA, and they have internships with really good companies. So it's obviously not the same. But I find that sentiment very true of like most of the time what you do personally and how you show your personal passion is actually going to shine more than your grades.
And I think sorry, not to cut you off, but like when when they're doing interviews, they'll see that you're so perfect on paper.
Yeah.
And then you're very like, yeah, I have a 4.8 GPA and that's all I have.
Yeah.
And then like that's the thing of like you're perfect on paper, but as a person you have nothing else to show.
Yeah.
And I think you have to find that little balance where like, okay, I might have to suffer with a 3.6 GPA, which is still good, right? But I have XYZ on my application and I did all of this during this time, right?
Yeah. And I find that a bit disillusioning because they always do stress about having the 4.0 GPA or like getting grades in classes and stuff like that, but it really isn't the most important thing when it comes to the real world,
Yeah.
I think it's maybe like an older mindset where the 4.0 was enough because it wasn't.
It's true.
There probably wasn't as many people applying to medical school, and the ones who got in were probably like just the smartest. But then when it becomes so saturated, it's like it's 4.0, but like 100,000 people have a 4.0. So now how do I differentiate between those people?
Yeah.
And that's everything else. Yeah. But even I mean, I know somebody who got into UF medical school with a 3.1. Right, so it's not necessarily, and they had to take a gap year, and like, if I remember correctly, I can't remember his name, but he was being told by like his advisor, like he'd never get into medical school. Like there's definitely, people like that out there, and so just you kind of have to just be passionate. That's what I like. It's not like my GPA was perfect. I failed Orgo. I failed Orgo Lab. I failed Calculus 1 twice. And it's ridiculous because I went to differential equations. Like I took Calc 1, 2, 3 and differential equations, but those other 3 classes I got A's in them. So it's like,
oh wow! So you failed the first one,
that's
but
like
then
0 to
you
100
did great
actually.
in the other one.
Yeah, but I'm kind of like the 4s and the 5. Like once I fail something, I'm like I'm never failing again.
Yeah,
like that's it.
You lock in.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that's it, no more. So like, and that kind of looks good on your application as well. It's like, how do you bounce back when you don't do well or when something happens? And they do give you room to like explain why you didn't do well in a course, or why you failed the course, or whatever the case may be. Obviously not every student is the same. Like some students maybe also work 40 hours, or they have a grandmother, or a grandparent, or a parent who's sick. and that, that person is obviously going to not have as easy as a time as somebody at a 4.0. Maybe they have a 3.5 and the 4.0 didn't have anything to do. So it's like, I bet that 3.5 could have gotten a 4.0.
Yeah.
So those things matter too. How involved you are. Like I could, a lot of us at school, we do pretty good. But we could do better if we devoted all of our time to studying. But a lot of us have leadership roles, or we do other things on the side, or we're part of other committees. So that's going to take away time from studying or from these things. And it's not necessarily that we're failing. It's just we're not going to get 100 like some, 98s or whatever, like some of these other students are doing. But at the end of the day, you're not going to look any worse. The difference between like an 85 and like an 89, or like,
Yes, it's not
like a 91 to a 98. That's going to be negligible when they look at your GPA, which probably most employers won't. They're going to look at all your leadership roles and things like that.
Yeah.
But you definitely want to have versatility, especially on their applications, because everybody has to take microbiology, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's true.
you're all taking the same classes.
That's true. Talking a little bit more about versatility, like, can you talk a little bit about what you did, like volunteering wise, research wise, just to give like our audience a little bit about like the background,
Like during undergrad?
undergrad, and now, well, since we're talking a little bit more about like how you got here, more a little bit about undergrad and gap years and stuff.
Let me think. Undergrad, my first year here, I was part of MAPS, the Minority Association for Pre-Medical Students.
Heard of that one.
That's the first thing I kind of joined, and we had what was called, I don't know if they still do them, they're called like STEM Saturdays.
Okay.
So we went to this church, I can't remember where, it was like Color Manor or something. It was far, at least for me. And we would drive there like, I don't want to say every Saturday, but a good amount of Saturdays. And we would like do science experiments with some of like the kids who were part of the church or whatever. And like we did like the strawberry DNA one, and then we talked to them a little bit about like DNA. Like they're not like babies, but they're like 8, 9, 10 years old. Some of these kids. We would do that. I think we would do a lot of like what do you call them? Like the food drives during Thanksgiving. So we would we went to like a Publix and we'd pack like 200 boxes of like meals for like families of 4, or like it was a lot of things like this. And then I kind of got, I guess before that. So I used to be very, very shy. Like if I had to present something, I would go up on the board. Like until I was like 22 years old, I'd go up there and like start crying. Like I had the worst stage fright ever. Like I wouldn't actually cry, but I'd be like, and so
But
like,
I look at you now.
Yeah, you're on this podcast, so I give you props.
So, thank you. So like what kind of attributed to that was like I happened to see an email for like PLTO, which you guys probably, or you for sure know what it is.
We've learned about PLTO,
So I kind of got an email. They were looking for like PLTO leaders, and I was like, let me try whatever. And that's kind of like, it's kind of like a tutoring for like, you get like 10 or 12 kids or students who are taking the class currently, probably a class you've already taken or should have taken, and you kind of just like lead them in this kind of like session. Where you have like questions that the professor gives you, whatever. And that's kind of where I started to like break out of like that shell of being, having stage fright. So, and then through there was they send a lot of opportunities to do volunteering or be more involved. I kind of like moved up that kind of ladder, I guess, if you will, to be like a GD leader. So when I was in charge of other PLTO leaders. And then it became like a chair when there was like a transition where we lost a lot of like the administration, and it kind of fell on me and 2 other people to kind of like help run the program and like kind of like revive it essentially, because we almost shut it down a couple years ago. But it was a lot of things like that, or just like they would send like what they call it, like Comb the Beach or Save the Beach, the thing that they do over at BBC. Yeah. It's like any emails that I would get and I could go to, like I would kind of be a part of it. And then I did a little bit of research in the Dr. DeGennaro lab, the Aedes aegypti thing, the mosquito.
Oh, the mosquito lab. Okay, yeah. Got it. Yeah.
So that was kind of like my first research. And then that kind of just transitioned into graduate school. I just kept doing, like, I'm part of like a PDC, which is like another frat, but it's like a professional pharmacy frat thing where it's not necessarily like parties, it's more like volunteering. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple other frats as well, like Kappa Psi, whatever. And they will do like Lotus House events, and I'll go to those, or like they'll do like beach cleaning, I'll go to those, or like whatever we do. Like we do, our biggest is usually the St. Jude Walk. I think is always in August or September, something like that. So that's kind of what we organize, or at least that's what we put the most emphasis on. So like we go to all those events. Anytime we have like those things, we could try and do them. And then when it came to research, at least at pharmacy, I kind of got lucky where we each get assigned like a faculty advisor.
Okay.
And you get a mentor as well. I think a lot of medical schools do this now too, where you'll usually get a mentor who's like a year above you. So I kind of got lucky once again to have, like, I've kind of been blessed to have a bunch of like mentors in my life, at least academically, who kind of like help guide me. So my faculty advisor happened to be starting research right when I met him. And so we've published, I think, 1 or 2 papers now. And it's kind of something we've been working on since about a year and a half now. We're going to be presenting now at AACR in April. So it kind of just like, you start small. You just start with little events. Your research doesn't necessarily have to be medical related. Research is research. Like the way you go about research is always going to be the same. So like I had friends who were doing research on fish, like jewel fish and like Everglades, and now they're like in medical school too. And they're like, but it's like how, when you go to your interviews, it's like how you sell it. It's like, so that's kind of important.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just once you start like small and you find the things that you like to do, it'll just start rolling on its own.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to get involved. Like I never saw myself being part of like being GD chair or whatever of PLTL, but it kind of just like it rolled. Like it kind of just, I just like, whatever. I got an email. I was like, let me just try whatever. What's the worst that could happen?
Of course.
And so, and if I fail, like I was gonna cry anyways. Like it doesn't matter. So you kind of have to have like that, like want to get better. And that's like another story you can tell too. It's like, because they're gonna ask you, was one time that you had to like overcome something, or you had like that's the most common question they love to ask you in these interviews, or like, tell us about yourself. And it's like, oh, well, actually, and then you can, that's things you can attest to. But what did you have to overcome? I got an A in Orgo.
Yeah. And you were too scared to do anything else. It's
of course. And I think that's the biggest thing about applications and interviews is like storytelling. And that's what we're doing here, right? We're just like telling our story. We're telling your story. So when you go into interviews, when you go into applications, you want to be that great storyteller of like, I did X, Y, and Z, and this is what X, Y, and Z did to me, and this is emotions, feelings, and stuff. Because I think that's one time I had an interviewee that told me like I had a 4.0, I did all of this, and then he went back and he's like we asked him what he would regret, or like if he could go do it again, like what he would do different. He's like, I wouldn't get the 4.0. Like I'd give my time somewhere else, or I'd do. And then this is someone that went into med school already, right? But he told me, he's like, I'd go back and I'd probably like sleep in that day, maybe just because I didn't want to get the 4.0, you get me?
Yeah.
But, and then going into like what you're talking about research, like people that are just doing like research with fish, it's not about medicine and stuff. I think that's me and Alice, since we're in educational research, like some people like frown, like they're like, oh, that's not research or whatever. And that's something big that I've heard from med students as well. It's like, oh, you did educational research, like that they won't see that as research in the interview, but it's kind of how you sell it, like you're saying, right?
Yeah. I don't know if that's like an ego thing, because I've gotten that type of reaction from people before, especially when I go to some of these conferences where they kind of like, not everybody's research is going to be like groundbreaking, cutting edge, like drug discovery. I just cured cancer. Like nobody, like, but the process by which you go about research is the same. You still have to make sure your variables, the size, everything. Like you still have to like come up with like what you want to do research on, and you have to write a paper, which is the worst part. But I don't know. I think it is a lot about what you like, how you sell it, and what you, like I said, what did you gain from while you guys are doing this research, like perspectives, or the person with the 4.0 who never interacted with people is not going to be as socially aware as the doctor you would be, because you've met and interviewed with all these people, or like your social skills might be a little bit better, and that matters a lot too, especially nowadays with like bedside manners and all this kind of stuff and the way the world is going. So it's like, okay, great, you're intelligent, but you're not a human. So like, how are you going to relate to your patient? because your patient has to like be able to be comfortable to like, hey, I'm having this issue. And there's a lot of things where people might be embarrassed of what they have, or like, especially when it comes to like, you know, skin things or whatever, like, you know, they don't want to like show, or like they might feel uncomfortable with telling you certain illnesses that they might have. So it's like you have to be able to like relate to this person and kind of like form a connection, which is why I'm happy I taught. Like I was able to like, how do I say, like before you can teach someone, and obviously when you're a healthcare professional, you're the expert in the room. So you have to be able to teach your patient how to take care of themselves. So it's like before you're able to do that, they have to feel comfortable, and you have to be able to understand this person. Like, I know I could have a better not better, but more in-depth conversation about medicine and biology with you than I can with her because she's in software. But if I didn't know that she was in software, then I could be like, and she's not going to understand what I'm saying. Oh, you should be taking this, or this medication does this. She'd be like, what? Like she's going to be very flustered because she doesn't know what's going on. And it's not because she's dumb or whatever. It's just because that's not what she does. Yeah. So you have to be able to understand people too. And I think that's what they look for a lot, and why people who have those experiences are probably more preferred, because you know how to have those relationships with people. So it's like your research can be sold in a different way, right? Like, what does my mosquito research have to do with anything? Have you guys heard of Zika ever since it came out like 10 years ago? Probably not. Like, so it's like the average person doesn't, you know, whatever. It's like, okay, so what did you do in the lab? Nothing. I collected mosquito eggs. I didn't do anything. You guys are doing more than what I did. So it's like, I don't know. I think it's how you sell in, like what you gain from it, and how you convey that to whoever's interviewing you.
I agree. I have a question. That whole doctor-patient relationship that you were just talking about, I find that really interesting because I took a class called Narrative Medicine last semester, which is about narrative literature and communication within the medical field. And it's something that's not as highlighted when it comes to like doctors, of like, okay, you need to know this medicine, you need to know all of these systems, you need to know all of these things. But something that can be sometimes overshadowed is like, how do you build rapport with a patient? And like Anabel said, I know a lot of people go into medicine because they care about the patients and they want to help heal people. But I feel like there can sometimes be a disconnect. Obviously, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just speaking from what I've heard. The professor was a doctor, so he would like talk about his own experience. But yeah, so how would you say going forward? Like, do you is there certain things that you would want to do? Like, let's say if you were to start working with patients, like how would you go about doing that? And what would you like recommend to undergraduate students who are maybe more interested in that? I don't know if that's a good question. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it's a good question. It's just in depth. So like I said, it's a little bit different because we don't see patients in the same way that, like, the MD is obviously the one who talks to the patient. Like, he's final word, right? They'll be in the room, you know, with him, and he'll be like, oh, I want to start this patient on blah, blah, blah. What do you think? And you kind of have that discussion, like, as a team, but it's still ultimately up to the, you know, the MD. I think there are some minute clinics where you have that opportunity to kind of, I think CVS has them, where like you can, when you do like your vaccines and all those kind of things, or like certain tests, it'll still be like a pharmacist. I don't know. I think it's really, how do I put this? First, you have to have, I guess, a desire to want to go into that field, because typically you do, you know, what turns people away is that you make less money typically as a clinical pharmacist, which makes sense. CVS is probably going to pay you more, you know, than like a smaller hospital would. But you kind of have to have the desire to do it, and it's a skill set. I mean, I think our school does a really good job of building that skill set with us and kind of reinforcing us in that way. It's just hard as a pharmacist, especially if you work, because part of being a pharmacist, even if you work at CVS, you should be consulting. Like, a patient that has a question, they're going to come and ask a pharmacist. It's just when you have a store that fills 800 scripts in a day, it's hard when people are like, where's my drugs? Where's my drugs? Where's my drugs?
Of course.
So you know, there's a lot of frustration, especially with how like they're understaffed as well in a lot of these places. So if it's one pharmacist and two techs, imagine, you know, you have a line of 30 people and you have a drive-through. So it's like, how do you find time to do that?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just something you have to develop and kind of like want to do. because if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. Like there's people who work in a central pharmacy and they never see a patient a day in their life, and they're still clinical pharmacists. It just, you have to put yourself in the situation to want to do that, because pharmacy is a little bit different in that way.
That's true.
Just because, like, as a doctor, you have to see that, you quite literally have to see patients.
Yeah.
But not every pharmacist is going to be required to see patients. Not in the same way. Like, not be part of like the decision making. Some like NICU, which is like for newborns or like kids and stuff like this. Heme oncology, which is like blood, so like leukemia, lymphoma, those types of things. Just because almost every patient, I don't want to say almost every patient. A lot of patients are probably going to be put on drug trials, or there's going to be a lot of like reasons why they can't take this drug, or that just like it's a lot. Like oncology's a lot, but it kind of just depends on the person. Like it's such a diverse field, so there's even a reimbursement pharmacist. So like, or like a financial pharmacist. So like all the finance, or like they have at they have what's called the patient assistance program. So like that's run by pharmacists and like pharm techs, which kind of makes sense, because if you want a drug to be approved, the person who's going to know about the drug and how to get it approved for you, it's going to be like your prior auth is usually done by a pharmacist as well. Your doctor can do it, but the person who's probably going to know the most about the drug and how to get you that drug covered is going to be the pharmacist. So, but do those people necessarily speak to patients in a medical way? Not necessarily, but you're still impacting them by getting them the drug that they need.
Of course.
And these drugs are ridiculously expensive, or at least some of them are. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to, I think we're going to wrap up soon, but last question is kind of what advice or like influence, advice is the word I'm going to stick with. What advice would you give to undergrads who are thinking about pursuing a pharmacology degree? And like, what would you tell them to like kind of focus on? What are some things that you would tell them they need, or they would definitely need to be passionate about to, go for this degree?
I think my advice with any graduate program you want to go into, just in general, is just to be passionate about what you want to be about. So whether you want to do pharmacy or not, just find what you're passionate about. I took time. If anybody ever asks me, hey, the moment somebody says I'm unsure or I don't know, I tell just take a gap year. My immediate is take a gap year. Just take a gap year. Doesn't matter. Oh, I don't think I'm okay. Take a gap year. Just because you need it. Like because if you go into something you're not passionate about it, and then you, like I said, you don't want to fail out with 50K or like decide to leave it. So that's kind of like just in general. To go into specifically into pharmacy, I would say just keep an open mind. Because like I said, there's a lot of different things you can do with pharmacy. There's people who work for the FDA. There's people who like, they're pharmacists, they have a PharmD, and all they do is social media for like drug companies. And it's like, I don't know. There's people who are IT pharmacy, reimbursement pharmacy. They like basically doing I kind of see pharmacy as like an engineering degree. Kind of like the engineering of healthcare, where it's like you can almost do anything with an engineering degree. You can work in composites, you can build rocket ships, you can build cars, you can build assembly lines. Kind of same thing with pharmacy. You can develop drugs, you can do research, you can work in industry, you can work in IT. Like you can do whatever you want. Like, there's a lot of things. So just keep an open mind. Have an idea of what you want to do, but keep an open mind. It's also very quick. Like once even if you're in a 4-year program, it's very fast. When you're studying every single day and you're like, I need more time to study, but like time is flying. So even if you don't want to do a residency or you don't see yourself in a certain role, prepare yourself as if you're going into that role. Because you don't want to get to 3rd year, or in my case, like if I wanted to start getting ready for residency, I'm kind of too late because we would be applying for residency this December. So I'm like, if I, at the last moment, was like, I want to do residency now after my rotations, I'm like, I don't have time to be part of a club or be the president of something.
Makes sense.
Or like, so like, start from the beginning as if you want to have everything you want on your plate. Like, just, I'm going to do the maximum residency. I'm going to do everything, and just like get as much on your plate as you can. Obviously, reasonably, because I recommend like the first semester you chill, like kind of get into, if you see yourself doing well, okay, then add on slowly.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't in the lab 20 hours a week. I was like maybe 3 hours a week, and then it became like 6 hours, and then like I added on as I felt comfortable. And that's kind of just lucky that my professor was very understanding, which I think most of them are once you're in medical,
yeah, of course,
because they understand, you know, they went through the school too, so they're typically more understanding of those types of things. But just like I said, shoot for the biggest goal, even if that's not your biggest goal. Just try and get involved with as many things as you can. Because at the same time, like we hate school, but we're never gonna be like I'm never gonna be in school again after this. So I might as well like spend my time enjoying it. So kind of enjoy the process because it sucks, but you know you're never gonna be like with your friends that much in school. You're never gonna be like hanging out that much or like struggling together or doing these things. And then once you're like real life starts, it's kind of like that's it. You're working 9 to 5. So you know you want to make sure that you have as many opportunities as you can to make that something you enjoy. It's also for people who are worried about the like organic chemistry kind of part of it. It's not as much chemistry as you guys think. Like actually, it's actually a lot more like there's kind of stuff where I'm like, isn't this something like the doctor would know? Like they teach you like diagnosing all this kind of stuff. It's not as much medical chemistry as you guys think. Like you don't have to know the structure, right? You like like the basic structures, but you're not like it's nothing. You're not reinventing like the wheel or something. Like it's not that bad.
Yeah, I think to me that's the biggest part when you're talking about pharmacology. I'm like, the chemistry. Like I gotta write down all of the benzene rings for every freaking drug and stuff like that.
No.
That's good. That's good. All right. Thank you so much, Rodney. Thank you for being on STEM Files with us.
Thank you. You did great.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the STEM Files. Today's episode, we had our guest, Rodney, and he talks a little bit about his experience in undergrad here at FIU and into pharmacology university at Larkin University.
Yeah, I feel like I learned so much this episode. I mean, being the computer science major, I kind of didn't know most of the things that they were talking about in this, but still his passion and his drive really shined through. And I really enjoyed sitting in here, and I hope you guys did as well. Thank you so much, Rodney, for being here. We really appreciate it. You did great. Thank you guys so much for listening to STEM Files, and we'll catch you in the next episode.